Kenny, hi. So good to be here. So good to have you here. For those of us who are listening, for, for those who are listening to us for the first time, let's talk a bit about why we're here and what we want to do with these conversations about mediumship, about energy, about holding your power, about everything and anything regarding spirituality.
Hey, well, it's super cool to be here and to chat to you because I love chatting to you. And of course, I love chatting about these types of topics. Usually, once I get started, I can't stop. It's of a big interest to me, and it's usually of an interest to a number of other people as well. So I guess this is a bit of an experiment. We've all been going through lockdown and strange times. So why not embrace something different? Why not do something different with our time and energy, but to talk about it?
I mean, sure. I would like to think that people, you know, don't have anything better than do than listen to a couple of strangers rap about energy and owning your power. So let's start. Please tell me, what's energy? What's personal energy? What's holding or owning your power about? Let's start with that.
Oh, okay. Well, all of us are energy, and we most people will have heard about the aura. And for those that haven't, the aura is the magnetic field that surrounds our physical body, and we have magnetic energy running through us. And the earth has magnetic energy, so it's not unusual that we would feel a connection to nature, or animals, or animals feel a connection to us, and um, all that kind of thing. So obviously, I'm no scientist, but you tend to learn in school about energy. Energy can't be destroyed, but it usually changes form. And so when it comes to sort of all things spiritual and mediumistic and things like that, we would sort of be talking about how when when our physical body is of no longer use to us, when we pass away, when we die, or when our physical body is no longer functioning, it doesn't mean that our consciousness, that energy of us, dies too, because it continues on beyond the physical. So we're already, even though we're a physical being, we're also a spiritual being already. So when it comes to talking about your power and owning your power, what I mean by that is it's about that power of you, that magnetic energy, that soul that is you and uniquely you, that can't be destroyed, because energy can never be destroyed, only change its form. So if I give you an example, most of us have had friends or family members that they can be a bit challenging, or we can feel a bit drained after they leave, or when we leave part company. And, it's always, woe is me and all my problems, and you're there trying to be supportive and empathetic and everything. And sometimes we might just feel physically tired and drained. And what that comes down to is, not only are we giving our mental time and energy and our listening ears and sympathetic ears and things, I truly believe that when we're not aware of our own energy and power and other people's, it's kind of like when you plug your phone into the wall and charge the battery up. It's like those people come along and plug into your energy and charge themselves up. So they tend to leave going, oh, thank you so much. I feel so much better. You're such a good friend, or you're such a good daughter. I always feel good around you. You always make me feel better. And they leave feeling high as a kite and happy and wonderful. And then when they're low again, they're back. They're back for more. And so it's certainly something I experienced in my life. And I was aware of it, but I wasn't aware about how, if or what I could do about it. I just knew I had that feeling afterwards. And through the mediumistic journey and through the spiritual journey that I've had, I've come to understand that we can own that power. We can own our auric field, essentially. So it's not about cutting people off. It's not about stopping listening to them and being sympathetic, but it's just giving what you're prepared to give of your energy, your actual energy. And so that you can still be a good friend, you can still be a good daughter, but they might notice a bit of a difference because they're no longer able to sort of plug into that power that is yours. But if you manage that and you own it, as I often say, then you give what you're prepared to give, and you're not depleted, but they get enough to get themselves by, and you can manage the process from there. So I might be waffling a little bit. I tend to do that and go off on tangents, so hopefully people will keep up with me. And I guess anyone listening might be like, but how do I own my power?
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask. So, but before we get to that, let me ask you, you mentioned awareness a bit earlier. How can we become aware? How can we make sure we're in the right mindset or mind space and are aware of ourselves in a way in which we can then build ourselves up again or control this?
So I guess it's finding what works for you, because we're all different and different things are going to help us. So it's not necessarily a one size fits all, but meditation can be a good thing. Some people that are very left-brained will find meditation difficult because they're always thinking and that left brain's always interfering. So meditation might be like, they might all be rolling their eyes at the thought of meditation because they find it challenging and difficult. And I know,
Guilty of that.
yeah, and I get that because I'm a left-brained person, or I can be in the left brain. So I found it a bit of a challenge as well. But there's other things people like that can do. Take a walk in nature, in the park or in the woodland or around on the beach or something like that. Maybe they've got a pet, a dog that they can take a walk. If they can take a cat for a walk, they can certainly try. But so whatever it is that is going to just help them relax mentally, because that's the key. It's when the left brain is in charge, it's difficult to get yourself in that mind space to be able to be more aware of your space, yourself, your self-awareness. So whether it be going for walks, meditating, whether it be maybe drawing or coloring in, why not get a mandala, or get, if you've got children and they've got coloring in books, why don't you nick their pencils and do some coloring in, just something that's just going to quieten down that left brain that likes to be in charge. So whatever works for you. Knitting, maybe knitting helps, anything that's relaxing, do it. And anything that helps you go within, if you like, within your own thoughts, but not in the sense of the left brain being in charge, thinking about, you've got to pick up the kids at 3 o'clock, you've got to make dinner, you've got to pick up the chicken, and you've got to buy loo roll because there's a new wave of virus coming, and whatever it is. But it's finding whatever's going to work to sort of calm down that overactive thought process. That's when you can start to feel your own presence and feel or become more aware of your physical, mental, spiritual well-being and self. Once you get to that point, a good way to, when you've got that relaxed mind, is focus on your breath. Just become aware of how your breathing is. If you're going for a walk, you might be strolling and it's nice and easy. Or if you're like me and you've got things on your mind, you might be doing a power walk until eventually, you slow down and realize you've physically worked out some of those thoughts. And then you get into a rhythm. So does your breath. And just following that rhythm of breath really helps you to just sort of become aware of yourself, aware of your own inner being. And it's an observation. Perhaps for those that find it more challenging, give your left brain a job to do, and that job is to observe the self.
Ouch, that's gonna be hard.
I get that. It's harder for some than it is for others. It's also facing up to yourself. I think, we live in a world where it's very critical. You've got to perform, you've got to get X grade to be able to do X exams, to get X job, to get to where you want to be. You've got to be first or second, third isn't really good enough. All these kinds of challenges that we face from a really young age nowadays. It's not fun to do sports anymore. It's kind of like, you must win, you must be the best. And I think we kind of live in a very physically focused world, materialistic. It's about being the best. It's about having the best. It's about earning the most. It's about being famous. It's about being famous overnight. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that, but just society has changed a lot. And we've stopped caring about each other and ourselves in a way that's good. We have a lot of people lost in the world. Like, they don't really know where they fit in or belong because maybe they've got the 2.5 kids and they've got a nice car and a nice house, and maybe they're divorced and got another nice boyfriend or girlfriend, or whatever it is. And a lot of people get to a point in their life, whether it be younger or older, and sort of then question, why am I here? What's really the purpose of having a big house or a car or this or that? What's the point? I can't take it all with me, so what is the point? So I think sometimes we lose our sense of self and our inner joy. And I've just been so grateful. We've had such good weather through this whole lockdown. I mean, it's been brilliant.
Yes.
I've just been really grateful. I've gone out for walks. I've walked down local streets I've never walked or driven down in the 17 years I've lived here. So I've gotten to explore little nooks and crannies of things I never knew existed. So sometimes it's just been grateful for the small things, and realizing life isn't all about the material things.
That's a lot to process. So I'm gonna ask, because I'm an overthinker, and you know me. What do we do if we're overthinking this and we go into like anxiety mode because we cannot own our power? How can we make this? How can we not make this? You know, transform it into something that's actually bad for us, if you know what I mean. Because that pressure of overachieving can can roll in. And how can we stay away from that when it comes to something so, I don't know, almost this is almost like flow, isn't it? Something
Mm.
so untouchable,
Yeah, I
ungraspable,
mean, look, I guess I love having deep conversations, and it's pretty hard in a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation to kind of sum up everything we think and feel about life and put the worlds to right. Um, but the fact is, yes, we have a physical body, we're constrained by the physical body. I'm getting older, and trust me, I'm feeling the effects of getting older in my physical body. You know, we have limitations. Um, but equally, I'm lucky enough to know that I will be freed from this physical body at some point, and I'll carry on. And when it comes to anxiety and things, and I guess part of what I'm trying to point out is we're already a spirit, we're already a soul, and we happen to have a physical body, and we happen to be living a physical life. So we can't dismiss the fact that yes, we do have to have a job to pay the bills and so on and so forth, and we have responsibilities in life, and sometimes depending on our personality types and the way life flows, we can feel the burden of those responsibilities. So it's important to acknowledge that sometimes we have to be focused on physical life problems and situations, but it's understanding that this too shall pass. That um, whether you do nothing or whether you over stress about it, something will change. It will move on. Something else will happen. And sometimes things are out of our control. So it's understanding, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anything like that. So I certainly don't want to come across that way. But sometimes we have to accept that we can't control every little thing in our life. And you know, like this whole lockdown business and COVID and everything, we can either sit at home and fill ourselves with anxiety over it, or we can accept that there's a certain amount of that that's out of our control, and therefore, you know, make the most of it, like use the time wisely. So owning your power and working through moments of anxiety is knowing yourself, and is being honest with yourself. What can you control? What can't you control? What what's how can you be a better person through the process? So being honest with yourself is not an easy thing. A lot of people project outwards, and when you look inwards, it's a different process because there has to be that honesty with self and how you really feel about things and situations and people and so forth. And so perhaps when it comes to owning your power, you have to also find that honesty. You know, we're not all perfect. I know I'm not perfect. I accept I'm not perfect. But for a long time, I couldn't accept that. And because, not because I was told I had to be, but, you know, everybody wants to be liked. Everybody wants to be liked by as many people as possible. But the fact is, we're all different, and we don't all get on, and we don't all see eye to eye, and we can't make other people understand our point of view. So then when you, for example, realize that you yourself don't get on with everybody, then how can you expect everybody to get on with you? So then there comes that honesty and that acceptance. And so then that process allows you to understand that actually you can't control or force anybody to be anything else than what they are. And so then there's a process of letting go, and then you start to own your own power in that, because you accept who you are, and that you're not going to be what somebody else or everybody else expects you to be. So that's part of that, owning the power. And then look, we're going to have challenges in life where it may raise our anxieties. But then if we work through those challenges and know that it will pass, then we understand that we've got a strength within to get through it. And we all have that. We all have an inner being and an inner strength that carries us through every challenge, as well as all the great times and all the good things that happen in life. And those great things and good things that happen in life help us and help give us strength for those times when we're going to be faced with a challenge.
Preach, Penny, preach. Yes. Um, Speaking of jobs that pay bills, do you remember last year when I called you? And I was so stressed. I was in a job I wasn't enjoying at all. And I was telling you about this coworker of mine that like kept sucking all my energy, and I was so depleted, so depleted. Um, would you like to share with you with everyone listening to us today, what you told me then and how you advised me to create my bubble and all of that, and that really helped me. And whenever I'm finding myself in a similar situation, I do that exercise with myself, and it helps so much. And I feel that's one of one of the tiny things that we can actually control, how we manage ourselves in
Yeah.
cases like this when we're in them.
Yeah, so I can't remember exactly what I said. Of course, it must have been genius at the time.
It was.
So I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to recount this for everybody right now, but it's, I like to think about it like this. As I said at the very beginning of our chat, that, we all have an auric field or a magnetic field around us. And, you know, it's sort of egg shaped or circular, however you want to sort of visualize that. But one thing's for sure, we've got this energy field around us. So if it helps, imagine it like a bubble. That's what I do. And when you're a kid and you had those little things where they'd have the loop and you'd blow bubbles. I kind of, and because of the soap, it's all like got that rainbow color around it. So I kind of imagine it like that. I just visualize it. I've got a creative mind, so that works for me. It might not work for anybody else, but I usually say to people, just imagine there's a bubble around you, and that if somebody's coming into your orbit, that bubble, and they're a bit of an energy zapper. I mean, some people kind of call it energy vampires, and I guess I can understand that terminology. So let's put that out there. So if you've got someone in your orbit that's a bit like that, you can visualize this bubble around you and just kind of imagine that their auric field or their kind of cyclone of chaos or negativity or whatever it might be, whenever that's spinning into your orbit, just imagine it bouncing off, and like a balloon, like when a balloon's blown up, it's got that sponginess to it. So, it comes close, but it bounces off. You're aware of it, you acknowledge it, but you don't have to get involved with it, and you certainly don't have to bring it into your bubble or your orbit. And, you know, it could be good to just kind of visualize that and imagine that, like, when you're breathing out, you're just kind of enforcing that bubble around you. And I mean, there's all sorts of like theories that, like, if you're trying to trying to stop yourself from saying something you regret, count to 10 and all that sort of thing. Well, why not just kind of focus on your breath, visualize this bubble, and just kind of smile and acknowledge they're in your orbit, but just don't bring them into your world. And usually it helps you because you just become aware of your world, your orbit, and they're not getting whatever reaction or whatever energy they seem to want to get from you because you're owning your power. So that's, I think, and I hope that's something similar to what I had explained to you, but that's in very simple terms how I try to explain it to people, and it generally helps.
Hey, that's perfect. That's even better than what you told me a year ago. So,
Oh, sorry.
before we
Right, it's an
before
upgrade.
we wrap
It's
up,
the, it's the 2020 upgrade.
2.0 mindfulness. Any words of wisdom on this whole owning your power thingamajig? Anything that you'd like people to remember after listening us for like 20 minutes waffling on about this thing? What would you say?
Look, I just love the catchphrase "own your power." I just think that's really important. Know it and own it. And I think if more people did it, we'd probably, like attracts like. We talk about that a lot spiritually, and generally. And I think if we all own our power just that little bit more, we'll create each bubble will create a bigger bubble of like happy bubbles and deeper meaningful bubbles, and all that kind of thing. And I truly don't believe that there's anyone really, really bad. I just don't think we're all meant to get on. I know, I get there are people that do things that are wrong and bad, and there's lots of different reasons for that. But what I'm talking about is just, hey, when you're at school, not everyone gets on. There's always a bully, or more than one bully, or there's a bully that has a gang. I know all about that because, that's something that happened to me a lot, and I never really understood it. And that I think when I was a little girl, it's what I tried to do. I think what I actually did was I built a wall around me rather than became aware of my bubble. And so by being aware of my bubble and kind of owning it has helped me to kind of accept that, do you know what? They can say what they like. It's not going to change who I am. It doesn't make me a bad person. And if they've got a problem, it's theirs. They own it. So it's that kind of, I'm not going to take on board what they say. I let that bounce off my bubble. So you could you could even have that. Let it bounce off your bubble, baby.
True that, Penny. True that. Well, folks, thank you for listening to this episode 0 of our Progressive Soul Dialogues. Hope you're gonna stick around for number 1 because this was a test. So yeah, thanks for listening. This is Andrea and Penny checking out.
Laters.